What I mean by prescriptive content is if, like those columns, like where you say you write in asking for the advice of a doctor, you have HIV, you've been taking your ARVs, they've stopped working, what does it advise you to do? Or you are a young man, you've gotten maybe 20 million shillings, what business should you do? In other words, where it's not just reporting straight news, but telling you what to do. Something, information upon which you can base a decision that guides your life. Anyway, so in the course of doing my research, of course, at the time I started doing the research in 2018, AI seemed like something that will never come to Uganda. Like it seemed so far away, so far away. I could not, even when I was doing it, ever have dreamt that in less than 5 years, we shall be using it in the newsroom. So the first thing that we found out was that AI generally is considered credible for most news. So I think someone gave an example somewhere where journalists were unhappy that some guys had used an image that had been generated by AI, and they said, why didn't you use an image from an actual reporter? The public doesn't care, honestly. If it communicates correctly, they don't mind. What we found out also is that generally AI is not as good in terms of the technical production as human beings. Human beings have mastered the craft. If you get someone who is a really good writer who can put words together, at the time I did the research, many readers could not tell the difference, but editors and journalists could tell. If you didn't tell them this was AI, they would rate and say, this writing is inferior to this one. But in terms of saying what they prefer, they really didn't care. If it's communicating information, they do not care. Where does it get interesting? Now, I wrote, so that's on general news. Now, mine was about prescriptive content. I focused on business, if it's giving prescriptive content in business, if it is advising you on health, or if it is advising you in relationships. Business, don't care. If AI is telling me investing these stocks is going to be good for me, that is it. If it makes sense, I'll make the investment. I don't care where the information is coming from. Same with health. If I can input my symptoms and it tells me according to these symptoms you have malaria, I don't care. Interestingly, on relationships, people really cared. If you told them, because we had like a control group, if you told them this is from AI, the rating of the info of the advice, even if it was exactly the same as the other groups who you told this is a human author, would plummet immediately. Like people would say, and it's as if they were telling AI, you do not know what you're talking about. Like, yes, you can tell me about health, you can tell me about business, but you know nothing about relationships, shut up. So yeah, I found it interesting. Do with that information what you will.
Wow. So when AI tells you to break up, in your heart you don't want to break up, right? So you just, who do you think you are? And I think that speaks to to what we are hearing from both Daniel and Carol, that the verification perhaps and the final use and the decision on how you're going to use information is your responsibility, right? And now that comes to Julie. So when a media house misbehaves, there can be some kind of punishment, right? The regulator can come after them and tell them that maybe there's some kind of defamation, all of that stuff. But now when it comes to AI, we cannot go and say, you actually told me to go and break up with the guy. I broke up with the guy, and now I have a heartbreak, right? So the question here is how do we deal with the intersection between, I mean, mainstream journalism and communication, and then AI, and still uphold a certain level of legalities in our communication?
Thank you, and good afternoon, everyone. That is a very big question, a very loaded question. But I'd like to take us a few steps back to what panelists have been talking about. and that is about what is AI. It has been mentioned that AI has been with us for quite some time. It is not particularly new. It just came into the public domain recently. The tools have been there for long. People have been utilizing them, including all of us in this room, believe it or not. Um, so we are scared of something that was actually known, just that it's been given a name. But another thing I wanted to point out is yes, there are issues of trust associated with AI, as Emmanuel here has pointed out. When do we choose to believe it? When do we choose not to believe it? As media houses, as individuals, as businesses, that's a dynamic that's emerging. But beyond believing it or having trust in it, is what type of information is it that these AI tools are spewing at you? Some of the retail, or rather the mass, openly accessible AI platforms are relying on data that is only up until what, 2021, 20, it's not recent. So it will spew everything you want to hear, but it may not give you the necessary information that is relevant for the now. As a media house, if we were to rely on outdated information, that would render you rather suspicious. Um, and it would also bring into question the amount of editing, proofreading, that whole, proofing of document of articles that are pushed through. But it also raises a concern for somebody called it. Someone had a very interesting term for it earlier. Anyway, peripheral media content, armchair, not it wasn't armchair, to something else. Anyway, so for content creators outside of formal media structures, many of whom have run to AI platforms to generate content quickly. They're pushing out information accompanied with very big fancy pictures, but that information is outdated. They have large followings, and I'm talking now from the perspective not only Uganda but some of the other countries that we have looked at. So there is a growing problem generally in the continent on terms of factual information or practices around identifying disinformation and misinformation, but also practices around the mass spread of information. And we see that disinformation sells, or has a bigger spread than factual information. Media houses, for now, since we are seeing not so quick an adoption of the utilization of ChatGPT generally to create a story, that is ideally not the practice at the moment. Media houses in international settings, or rather some countries, are utilizing tools far more sophisticated with access to a whole lot more current data. They're using it to complement the people who actually go out to look for stories. So there's not a complete reliance on that. So when it comes to the law, they're still able to say, well, here's the factual information, we're not relying fully on this. But there's also the dynamic around the regulation of AI. In Uganda, we're still trying to navigate so many other regulations. We're still trying to navigate digital taxation, for example, and this is only a recent move from taxation of what was it, social media. We're still trying to navigate past the definitions of a formal media house versus a citizen journalist. We are trying to understand, now this is speaking more broadly, some countries have decided that if you have a following of more than 5,000 people, you're automatically treated as a media house. What's Uganda's stance on that? What happens when AI comes into the play and I'm an individual, I happen to have this large following, my content is always hard hitting, it reaches bigger audiences than a legacy media house, so those are the dynamics that we're trying to understand. But this is not unique to Uganda, it's actually a global problem. How do we navigate this terrain of AI as businesses, as as a tool to fight back against disinformation, firstly, because there's a whole lot more opportunity for the creation of disinformation. That is likely to affect some media models out in some of the countries. So there's a lot happening in that space. So there's no straight answer in how we are yet to navigate AI as Uganda. We're still going to rely on our, standard laws for now. Even though there have been some amendments to them, they're not necessarily ready for this new area of AI and what it may mean in the long time for media regulation and content regulation.
Thank you, Juliet. So they're not ready because they do not know about it, or there are other priorities first.
I think both of that.
Okay, yeah, some people who are regulated do not need to understand the concept first before they actually regulate it, right?
I think there's an understanding, but there's an uncertainty of exactly what it is.
Okay.
It's like when the parliamentarians received the, what was it called, the tablets,
Yeah.
and we still had a parliamentarian, licking their fingers to swipe through. That's where we are with some of these developments.
Oh dear! Wow. Oh wow. So, so Daniel, getting back to just in line with what she said, because you are using it, how do you deal with the basic the basic requirements of journalism in terms of reporting truth, reporting facts, and making sure that the information is not wrong, or maybe misrepresentative of what actually you're actually intending to share with the public. So
Yeah, so just like there are journalists that are trained in fact checking, there are AIs that are doing fact checking, like Tinai. Tinai is doing fact checking. Google itself now can check for, can verify images if they were taken by a photographer, if they were taken, if it's an AI generated image, or if it's an old image. Right now, X, Twitter, also has an artificial intelligence that will add footnotes on a video. If you post a video and it has a sizable amount of people that are viewing it, Twitter itself, the X app, will put some messages down there and say, if this video is old, it was first posted on this date. Has anybody seen that? That's artificial intelligence at work, helping us to verify. So instead of you, the journalist, having to call people that you know in Syria, or call a journalist in Gaza to try and verify if this video is correct, X will do it for you, and you won't have to, struggle. Obviously, we've not had a lot of the Ugandan content being flagged by X. I don't know why, but for maybe it's because maybe our politics are not in the owner's interest. But for anything American, especially about politics, X will flag fake information. And I think I also need to tell you about disinformation. I do not believe the school of thought that AI is somehow going to breed disinformation and create disinformation from some dystopian world and bring it to us. It is the human beings that put wrong information in AI and tell the thing, create an image of Museveni wearing dreadlocks, and then the thing will create it. So it is human beings that input this information into the AI and then use it wrongly. It's the same thing with social media. People feared it when it had just come. Now there is good media on social media, and then there is also fake news on social media. So I think the regulation of artificial intelligence should start with the regulation of the human beings that are using the artificial intelligence, because artificial intelligence on its own, if I brought an AI here and put it there, it will say absolutely nothing. All of you have Siri on your phones. It will do nothing and say nothing until you prompt it. And even when you prompt it, it asks you, what do you want? How can I help you? So it is human beings that are creating the disinformation. And if you deal with the human beings, then you'll be able to regulate AI. But for the case of Uganda and regulation, it is difficult for you to regulate something that you do not host. If, for example, if the AI is hosted in California and the servers are there, then you will not regulate it effectively. It's the same thing that happened with Facebook. The only thing that we have done to regulate Facebook is to close it. So that's the only way that Uganda government, and I don't know if there are government people here, but I hope there is no Toyota Hiace down there. But yeah, so it's the only way is to close it down, which we cannot do because we are already using it.
We also need some politically safe examples to instruct AI, because then you might put us in trouble. So I think in terms of professionalism, Carol, or maybe let me first ask Emma, when you were doing this research, how are you verifying? How are you verifying what we're dealing with? That this is a, if you tell me all of this stuff about medicine, what makes people accept this? What are the points of verification that this guy is actually telling me the truth, the true prescription and everything for business and maybe health? What are the parameters of saying that what, this might actually be correct?
Interestingly, human beings, I think by nature, are trusting. If you walked in here wearing a white lab coat and you call yourself doctor, they will take all your advice on health. Human beings are just like that. So if you, because the way that I structured the research was, you say this information was given, was a response given by a doctor to this. This was information given by an investment expert to this. This was an information given by a counselor to this. Human beings read that, they take you at your word. Yeah, so I think it speaks also to what Daniel was talking about, that the ethical aspect of AI mostly has to do with regulating the human beings behind it, because AI is a tool. So if you can stop someone from posturing as an expert on a subject a priori before they even enter the information in the AI, you have a chance. If they have already passed themselves off as this thing that they are not, and then somehow the AI cannot detect it, you're gone for, because people instinctively trust. If I came and told you I'm a lawyer, a gentleman told us he's a lawyer, I believe him, but I do not know him. I've never met him. What if he was lying? So human beings by nature are trusting, and you have to keep, it's a very, something that's very delicate. Yeah.
There's a principle of trust that we really must take responsibility for as journalists or as journalism. And now, going back to you, Carol, in terms of professionalism, now we have an idea of what AI is and everything. Where should we start training and preparing journalists to actually embrace it and use it better in the newsrooms and even in their research? What are the basic things where do we go from here now that we know that, yeah, it might actually be an ally? Where do we go from here?
I think I'm a big proponent of training because I see what it does and training well, not just coming and putting slides and so I think that first of all is it's like what Jake was saying, and even Daniel, is to make them realize you actually have been doing this thing. You actually have, so that it's because like right now sometimes it feels like a monster in a way. I cannot decide a monster, but something out there that is so foreign and so scary, and that's going to come and take our jobs and things like that. So I think if we begin to have that conversation, let our journalists know that actually you've been using this. Remember when you did that? When you did that, you were using AI. So that makes it easier for them to feel like, oh, so I have an idea. So it's not too technically, difficult for me to understand or use it. So I think the first thing would be to help them understand what it is by showing them that they've been using it, and then beginning to show them different ways that they can use it. And I think when we break it down, like we've just, like, especially what Daniel was saying, it helps. I happened to have been in a training as well. Someone else was training content creators. Was it? Okay, no, people who are interested in creating content for their products or their businesses online. And he was training about AI. And he really broke it down. And he actually gave them examples. This is what you can do with your graphics. Let's use Canva. It's AI. This is what you can do with transcribing. And actually started to practice, and it was fun. And they realized, oh, it's possible. We can use this. So I think the first thing would be to train people on, to explain to them what AI is and the different forms that are there and how they can use them. And then begin to, I think for me, the onus really is on management. And if they really want to see where this thing going far, is on management and the editors to then say, what are we going to use? How are we going to use it? And how do we support our journalists, our reporters to use this thing? A lot of it, the really good stuff is you have to pay for it, and it's fairly pricey. So yes, so some things individual journalists can buy, but some things it's better if the management says, let's get this for our team. So I think that management needs to start saying, what are the things that are beneficial for us? How can we use that? How do we get our team to start using that? So that's another thing that I think management should do. And then, but also training them about the ethics. It's very important, and training them and saying this is a tool to help. Yeah, it's a tool to help. It's going to support you. It is not, like I said, it's not doing your work. It is just helping you. It's doing things faster. It is helping. It is making the job easier. But you do the work really of either verifying or of ensuring that it reads better or all those things. So I think that yeah, as media houses, those are some of the things we need to start doing. It needs to be very practical. I have seen many times when people come and say, guys, we need to start doing this. We need to go digital, and then it ends there. There is no actual steps. What are we doing to get digital? Do the guys have the tools? Have they been trained? You know, and maybe section by section, not just one general training, but section by section. The guys up country, guys in business desk, the guys, you know, the news, who the photographers and the video, you know, have we them for this kind of thing? So that it's a whole process, step by step. Everyone gets, you know, trained. Then the software that is affordable for the company, they get it, and then begin to sort of ask them to start doing that kind of thing. I think that's when it can be easily taken up. Yeah.
More like a really broad planned and organized strategy on how to move from zero to some other better direction where everybody actually understands what they're doing, right? Yeah. Now, to Julie, since the environment, I mean the regulator may not know may not know what to do in terms of regulating AI and addressing the issues that come with this information. But we are here in a room and we have at least, let's say, like at least today we have a fairly clear understanding of what AI is and how it might be of benefit to the media space. How should we try to start our own personal journeys of self-regulation, really? Because it's also recommended that journalists, of course, need to have a certain level of regulating themselves, really, to be able to be trusted, really. So to you, broadly, what do you see? How can we remain ethical? How can we self-regulate and still get the benefits of AI?
Well, again, another loaded question. So the panelists have already mentioned that we need to build a culture of managing, regulating the humans before we can try to regulate the tools. We keep seeing people getting beaten up, caned, and all manner of things. So that's already happening. And we see the France 2 journalists, particularly in Africa, not reducing, they're just getting worse. And they're going to keep getting worse with the, with the use or the presence rather of AI as yet another excuse for more canings, more beatings, and arrests. So I don't think I can fully agree to the fact, to the notion that regulating humans is the trick. In other parts of the world, people are not being beaten up, they're not being arrested to the extent that we're seeing here, yet they are having much bigger populations online, much bigger populations utilizing social media, and more likely to have bigger populations using these tools. So what is it that is actually missing? Once you've figured that one out, we may be able to have a more inclusive digital society, one that is more respectful of the people in that space, one that recognizes the diversity of users in that space. So I think personally that it goes back to digital literacy. In Uganda, just a fraction of us actually utilizing spaces like social media, and just a tiny section are utilizing AI, and that is likely to be the trend for an extended period of time. So when we talk regulation, we need to be talking through the lens of a more broader sense of what regulation of AI and I guess of online spaces should look like. Just this week, UNESCO released guidelines for the regulation of social media. And nowhere in there is a mention of arresting people, beating up people, shutting down the internet, shutting down social media practices, but that is our formula here. Has it worked? No. Half of us are still accessing Facebook. when social media was shut down, we found ways around whatever VPNs that were there. So that didn't work. So there is a global discussion to be had, or rather, that is happening. But how are we tapping into it as a state, but also as individuals? We often wait for information to come to us as opposed to going out to look for it. There is a recent study that I was involved in, which was looking at exactly this AI and newsrooms in Uganda. And many journalists were not actively looking after it. They're like, yeah, I've heard about it. It might take my job. How? They couldn't answer that question quite clearly. One thing that stood out and one thing that has been mentioned is that those journalists who have gone out to try to understand what AI is are going to be ahead of the pack, not just within the newsrooms, but within the broader media sector. They'll be more attractive to people looking for content from Uganda who are not based in Uganda because they've got just that little edge over others. So it goes back to personal brand, personal ambition, how do we keep in touch with what is happening and how do we maximize on what is happening in that space to the best of our benefit. Many people are, well, not that many, more people should actually be generating content online for the AI tools to utilize, because a lot of the content that AI is relying on is not content generated from within the continent. It's content generated from outside. So the narratives that AI is going to be spewing are remaining narratives formulated outside of the continent, outside of Uganda. Yes, there's content coming from Uganda, but it barely reads on some of the algorithms. So as journalists, we need to be having our own spaces for putting out content, blogs, podcasts, something. Just put out a narrative that is purely from here, so that we're building our own database of information. Um, and in so doing, we're actually creating an alternative approach of self-regulation, because we know what the content is that will be put out there. We know what the content is that the AI tools will eventually be turning to utilize. So hopefully that could be a tool to work against the disinformation or the misinformation or malinformation that can be spread courtesy of the tools, or rather the information that AI is built upon. I had something else here. So I was just looking at some of the numbers. Uganda only has 2 million social media users, roundabouts. It's not a bigger number. I'll check the data again. Versus some 10 million in Kenya. We are far behind, but we have some of the most stringent regulations managing online content and content produced by the media, which are detrimental to what we want to be as, rather to civic cohesion and participation. Um, but yeah, I think instead of looking at it as the glass half full, rather half empty, I think it's half full. We're getting there. The opportunity is immense as individuals, and I'd like to stress that more. We need to be generating our own content and use these tools to enhance what we have, to create more avenues for persons with disabilities, for example. Put out a post, but are you utilizing websites that have been defined, or rather developed in a way that they are accessible for persons who are visually impaired? AI can do it for you. It's a click away. Some of those tools are freely and readily available. How are we going about making our content more accessible to people who are completely hard of sight? Text readers, transcriptions are available. So there are very many small interventions that we need to be utilizing. We don't need a media house to teach us some of these things. As journalists, we need to go out and investigate, upgrade ourselves. And that was something I found lacking amongst some of the journalists we spoke to. There's the need, somebody actually mentioned that, no, we need civil society to tell us what to do. No, civil society is not paying your bills. You, the individual, are paying them. So you need to find ways. Yeah, so very simple interventions for journalists. Yes, there'll be disparities in journalists in the city versus other places, but that is not an impossibility. There are journalists who have been able to, who are actually generating very, very valuable content outside of Uganda. Unfortunately, readers here not adopting their content. The opportunity is there. We just need to utilize it and maximize what AI has brought in an ethical way. And in an ethical way means we need to understand what's going on at an international level when it comes to the ethics, the best practices out there, but also what is happening generally in the broader media landscape. How are they utilizing it? How are they moving forward in their own spaces as individuals and as entities.
Right. Thank you so much. Really nice, thought-provoking submissions. And I have so many questions, but if I ask them, you guys will just be spectators. So now, instead of me staying there, I want I want to hear from any of you any questions. And we'll start with the lady that side first, and then we'll go to Dick, and then we'll go to Dismas. Please, precision is part of AI, so so please, your name and your question, and then we proceed.
Thank you so much. My name is Vanessa Majega from Uganda Christian University. I am a student journalist. Sitting here and listening to a conversation of AI is literally mind blowing to me. Because in universities or institutions, it's literally, how do I say? It's literally illegal. Once you're found using it or something like that, you're doomed to be dense. You're doomed to be, you can't do anything by yourself. Yet when Daniel is like attributing to it, he says it's like an alternative to get more information and diverse information, yes? So I'm wondering how best can we change this narrative, especially to us, the young ones that are still in universities and all that. Yeah, thank you.
To Dick, and then Dismas, and then we come to Rosemary back there. Yeah, he's there. And then they call you a diplomatic zone. Yes. Will come to you after that.
Thank you very much. I want to agree with Carol and Daniel and say that I don't have a question. I agree with them that AI is not going to take journalists' jobs, so people shouldn't be worried that their jobs will go. But it will help them, or it will ease their way of doing work, as in give you a good background of a story. It won't also make the other challenge that journalists shouldn't rely on it because it won't give you that creativity that you need, especially when you're doing a local story. You really don't need this AI. And also, it won't take away your freedom to write whatever you want to write. Do we agree? Henry. Anyway, people shouldn't be worried about this. It's just a tool that is fed by humans, you and me, or any other person, and just like Google. Yes, so people shouldn't be worried. Thank you.
Thank you very much for our panelists and the people that are attending this very discussion. My name is Dismas Nwaine. I'm also a student at Uganda Christian University. And I am going to pose a question, and it's a question that I have posed before. I have based on my experience, especially when we are at campus doing some bit of research and this and that, I realize there's a pattern. There's some bit of dependence syndrome that comes with AI. I've noticed sometimes you can be in a discussion and there are simple matters where you can just sit down and brainstorm and people are running to the machine to look for solutions. So my question goes along that line. Doesn't AI in a way become so dependent to the person that it will limit their creative and critical thinking abilities? Because I've noticed this a lot. It's a simple matter, we can sit down and deliberate on an issue, then when you reach a limit, that is when you can go and outsource from AI perhaps, but it becomes the starting point of people that are proposing questions. So that is my question that we submitted to you.
What is my name? Ask ChatGPT.
Thank you so much, panelists. My name is Melissa. I'm a fourth-year student of journalism and communication at Makerere University. So this discussion is really so interesting, and for me, it drew me back to a certain book I personally reviewed in our lectures of communication, law, policy, and regulation. yeah, about reinventing public service broadcasting in Europe, prospects, promises, and yeah, and problems. And it's so interesting that this book was written in 2008. And just like you said, when you were doing your research, you felt like it's going to take a very long time for this to come. And I love what it says while it was assessing the public service broadcasters. And I love, for me, when I hear this discussion, what it brings to me is innovation. Like to move from the discussion of that is just like thesis statements. I believe this and this is true and this is what will change. But then the question of innovation and more specifically thematic channels. Yes, thematic channels and creating demand platforms. And I don't know if other people see it that way, but I believe that NBS is trying to create such things like to create showrooms, not necessarily TV channels, because that have like general content. Because now people are looking for like things that topics. You will find they have the Sanyuka TV, they have the NBS Sports, they have this one specifically for this, and that is what people are looking for. And we just need to move from the thought of let's just embrace, let's just do this. I'm not a science student, but I know innovation is not all about science. This is where it comes that even as the arts people actually have to come to the drawing table and generate using these things to generate something that is going to help us, not just theoretically, but practically. Thank you so much.
Right. Let's move this side. I mean, are we okay, yes. Oh,
You have said my name.
yes. Please.
Thank you very much. The ancestor is amazed at the conversation. Let me ask my question using just a small example. During my time, you had to have the court direct a journalist, for example, to disclose their source of information. Okay. Now, with respect to AI, I am asking, can you speak to the safety of journalism with AI?
Right.
It is making journalism easier, but it is also making it easier for the enemies of journalism.
Right.
It is easy now to find out your sources without you disclosing them. It is easier now to do the spying, the hacking, whatever it is. So, how safer? I'm not a prophet of doom, but I'm just saying if you are training us in utilizing AI to be better, to be good journalists in these times, also tell us how we can be safer practicing journalism in this world that is open, not just nationally, but internationally. Thank you.
Okay, you'll bear with me. We'll have one more and then quickly, and then we'll speak to them, and they're available for conversation. Yes, please proceed.
I wanted to do a demonstration if you'd allow me.
Oh, okay, proceed.
Hey Siri, where am I? Now, if you want to be safe, the most.
You're at Kapu Road, Kampala.
Where am I? Kapu Road in? Is that correct? Hey Siri, call Daniel Lotaya, NTV.
Yes. I don't see a Daniel Natalia and TV in your contacts.
Because I saved him as NBS. I am yet to change your details. This is what AI does for you. You give it commands. If you gave it a wrong command, for instance, of course, OpenAI is doing a lot. They will tell you, I am sorry, I cannot do this for you. My database is updated up to. Now, what are we scared of? Because it's what you feed that gives you, just like he explained. And then there's also something I noticed, that in our phones, when we go for trainings, we keep downloading apps. You keep downloading apps that you don't even use. Why don't you remove those apps if you don't use them? The simplest example I can give is your Google Map. When you are coming here, how many people use the Google Map? I know as who live in Kampala, it's easy and obvious. After using Google Map, do you go back to your settings and remove it? How many of us do that? It speaks to the safety and security concern that she's talking about. So these are basic things that sometimes you might not need, we might not think about them. But what she's saying comes back to our practices, what we use every day, because we've been using AI. In fact, even when you're going to, I'm sorry, Joan, Jan, I'm taking too long. But let me tell you, if you used, for instance, Lightcut or CapCut, your work is easier by 3 hours. The only thing that will disturb you is when you have an actually accent like me. And you're speaking and you're the interviewee. So the transcription will miss out some things and give wrong things. The work of the editor is then to go and just edit out the words. And these are things that we've been using already, right? Or if you're using CapCut, the only thing is for you to just go and reduce a few things. I actually honestly think we are using this, but just the new word AI is the one scaring us. And also editors know when you've used AI. I know reporters who keep sending. In fact, I have a problem with one from Fort Poto. That one uses AI pure and sends me, and you can know this is not our style guide. This is not our. And then I tell him, okay, I'm not going to say the name, but we've not yet officially adopted this. So when you're using it, be smart. Make sure you use it the right way, such that it is not so easy to say, but I've got to, you've used AI. Thank you very much.
Why don't you fire him for being unprofessional?
We can't fire him because I actually like his
AI reason?
No. his initiative to go out and experiment, only that he now needs to be guided, and you're telling him, this is how you use this tool. And that is what Carrie is saying. Can media houses guide their staff on how to use these tools rather than chase them away, like she's saying? I think that it is even a taboo to talk about it. We can't say it's a taboo. First of all, we don't even have our own apps that we have developed. We are even adopting. Now we're going to move from this and go to a conversation of where are our own apps that speak the accents that we do by actually accent and is able to transcribe all those things. Thank you.
Wow, I think we have another panel coming up, but I really want you people to speak out of your hearts. You can see the students who are concerned, and by the way, if you give plagiarized work, you're going to be penalized, but yet in the next 1 month, they're going to submit a story to her, and she'll be impressed by your ability to think out of the box. So these are really critical issues, and I also want us to speak to people like from people in Karamoja. I mean, the journalists who are doing things in some hard to reach places for tech. How do they? I mean, this thing of where are you? So I'm having my capability. So I'm like, Mr. Lutaya, where are you? I mean, to look back at me. So what are the options and what's the way forward? So please, free speech here. Tell us what you think. The most important thing is what's the problem? What's the solution? How do we go from here? So I start with you, Daniel.
Yeah, thank you. So I'll repeat something I said last year. If you do not know how to use any type of AI, then you won't have a job in 9 years. Last year I said 10 years. So the countdown is on for you. The ChatGPT cutoff in September was increased. ChatGPT is now it's now accurate up to April 2023. Yes, so I thought I should just give you that information. For the reporters that are using AI to write the entire story, please use some AI. Don't use the whole thing. Don't just send the whole script that is AI generated. Universities, I think the education system, I've said this many times before, the education system is flawed. It's wrong to think that in 2023 universities which are not high schools, are still teaching people how to store information in their heads, get their hard drives to do that. They're making people store information in their heads and cram it, and whoever crams and remembers the most information wins the election, rather the exam. It's not a teaching style that is up to our generation right now. So for the university students here, your lecturers are the problem. I know some of them are my fellow senior journalists, so maybe we shall have another conversation and talk to the lecturers who are teaching these students. Then for the dependencies on AI helps you to free your mind and think about other important stuff. If let's use a calculator is a computer. When I was studying, I don't know whether you guys, when you were studying, I had to cram the multiplication tables 1 up to 12 so that I can, count stuff on my fingers. So why should I have to go through all of that to calculate something, and yet there is a machine that can do that for me and free up my time to think about other more important stuff? So dependency on AI is not a problem. If the AI is accurate and it's giving you the information faster, why do you have to go to the Makerere University library and run through books, like 4 shelves of books, to get the same information that you can get in 2 minutes? Maybe you have a lot of time on your hands. If you do, please enjoy it. Or maybe you love the smell of books. I've had people that love the smell of books. So you do that. Cybersecurity, I heard somebody talk about cybersecurity. AI does not create new information. AI is a tool, and you can actually ask the AI. I think the AI that scares people the most is ChatGPT. The rest that we've talked about, everybody's like, okay, I can use the one on my phone, I can use Google Maps, but ChatGPT is a problem. So the AI can list the sources of the information for you, but also I'll talk to you directly. In a time when we used to talk to our sources through phone calls, would you openly leave the phone number of your source on the newsroom general desk, that area called General Happiness, where I used to sit with Idris Chigundu in the newsroom, where all of us backbenchers, the backbenchers of the newsroom, the loudest guys? I was one of those guys. So you don't leave the phone number of your source right there and the business card and say, this is the guy that gave me the info, the inside information. So you need to cover your tracks the same way. And there's something called a digital footprint. You can Google it or just go to ChatGPT and put the word digital footprint. Thank you.
All right. I wanted to speak from where Irene said. Having worked in the newsroom for 20 years, I can tell you that myself, I'm sure Pius over there and Irene will tell within a second or two that this has been plagiarized. This is from AI. We can just tell. Why? AI does not make you a better journalist or a better lawyer or a better doctor. It makes you faster because you're doing the work faster. It gives you knowledge, but it doesn't make you better. The tools of journalism they remain the same. They are hallowed, they remain the same. Verification, speaking to sources, all these things. AI just helps you to now get that information faster. But a story that I would want, that is a really good story, means that at some point I might want you need to understand the intricacy of a particular society. The thing that AI won't know that. It won't know, for example, even in America itself, there's certain things it won't know, which I know you as a journalist, if you went out there to do your research and investigate, you would find. So it doesn't make you a better journalist in that way. It is the principles that we have learned and studied that make us better journalists. The work we have to do, the research we have to do. So we have to remember that even as we're using it, what makes me stand out? I want to stand out as a reporter. I want to be the reporter that everyone is using. What will make me stand out is the way I write that story, is the kind of information I get, some of it from AI, but some of it from other sources, is that information, that knowledge I know about the history, the context, and things like that. So we have to remember that even as we're using AI, it is a tool. We'll keep saying that it is a tool to help us, get better, but not to do the work for us, if I may put it that way. And then in terms of, someone asked, doesn't AI limit people's creative abilities. If they let it, yes, it will. And as journalists, if you want to be a good journalist, don't let it do that to you. Remember again that it's a tool, and so keep on asking yourself, how do I get better at this thing? How do I get better at journalism? And I agree that doing things like there's certain things that only brainstorming can get you. There's certain thing that only a debriefing with your editor will get you. Hey, I won't get you that. The debriefing, sit now with the editor and then discussing 1990, 95, this and that will get you. So if you want to be a good journalist, remember that there are these principles that we have that will make you that kind of journalist. And then finally, in terms of safety, I agree with what everyone has said. And I think at the end of the day, a good journalist should be able to speak with the editor and let them know this is where I got information from. That is, for us, it's sacred. You need to be able to tell that person, because if when someone comes and starts saying, you know what, when you need to have your sources lined up, knowing that this is where I got information from, so that if there's a problem, everyone is aware and says, an editor can make a decision and say, if you got your content from here, we can use it. If you got it from here, we cannot use it because we might fall into these problems. So it is important that the editor and you and the editor always know where is our sourcing, where's the information from, can we use it, in what way do we use it, so as to keep both of you safe, and so as to make sure that the content we put out there, we are 100% sure that should anyone come and say anything, we have our facts, we have our sources, we know what we're saying.
Thank you. It's been a very interesting discussion. I wanted to speak to what the students said. Somehow students tend to get to the heart of the matter. I think because they are maybe still pure, being corrupted by by working out in the brutal world. But I think the reason maybe your professors are very particular about using AI is actually a conversation that's happening in journalism right now, namely the issue of plagiarism. You know, if you use AI, most of them just spit out a summary of information without telling you the sources. But one, you know that AI is as good as the prompts you give it, so you can ask it actually to cite sources. And also, there are specific tools that are targeted specifically for scholarly work, where they will give you citations for everything. So I think that would be a middle ground. You could tell your lecturers they are fighting they are fighting the tide. Like it has come, it has come. We only need to know how to harness it for our benefit. Thank you.
Thank you. Very, very interesting contributions. Just adding to what the students are pointing out, we also have a culture of resistance to technology generally. As Africans, as humans, we just resist change. We saw it with how narratives around the media tax introduction came. Social media is a place for gossip, must be taxed. So that demonized social media. At the same time, this is coming from the very same government that has social media guidelines for all MDAs to follow. So there's a bit of a tension there. Same thing with AI. That tension is within our homes, within our offices, within academia. But these are tensions that we need to work past. Emmanuel has pointed out that, there are facilities, but then again, some of the teachers teaching in some of the faculties are not well versed. There is already an inbuilt resistance there. This thing it's not right. It's seen with a very negative eye, and there's no effort put into trying to understand it. And that energy is transferred to the students, who lose out if they do not understand it, because their peers, their counterparts in other universities in other parts of the world are embracing it and learning how to use it to the best of its capacity. They're not necessarily plagiarizing it. They're just working better and faster, while we are here being told, don't use it. So I just wanted to put that out, that we need to be aware of the demonization of the various tools related to technology. It is quite a common occurrence. There is the problem of dependency on AI. Once you've figured it out, or once you think you've figured it out, it becomes your everything. We've seen that. But we, now there's an increasing reliance on tools that identify AI. It shouldn't be, but it is, because people need to go through a lot of information very fast. But yeah, as has been pointed out, there are people who spot AI from a mile away. You can see it in a tweet, you can see it in a post, you can see it in a research. You see it very, very blatantly. So there needs to be broader awareness of that, but also the utilization of tools like Tiny Eye, reverse image identification. You begin to see, because all these still speak to the presence and movement of disinformation and misinformation. So everything is quite tied into each other. And then on the issue of protecting sources, the way we might be building stories in the long run may evolve. It is evolving. We saw it with the BBC story during the elections, just past before the elections, where there was the shooting in town, and they relied on big data. They did not rely on one person saying, I saw this, They relied on the utilization of an AI tool to assemble all these different narratives, pictures, texts, to put together a story without any one person being identified, not any one specific social media account having to, be held accountable. But the story was there.
Right.
And still, the government, did call out for the editors of the, who republished it? It was
MBS?
Daily Monitor.
Daily Monitor, right.
The usual suspects, yeah. They were still summoned to explain themselves, but the information was there. So the way information is going to be sourced is evolving. If we learn how to use the tools of AI, we can build stories without having to rely on one person, but relying on the many avenues of information already there, relying on the multitudes of stories published already there. Social media platforms are being a bit nasty because they're blocking access to the APIs that allow for such to happen, but that does not mean that it's completely impossible. I think it's a fantastic opportunity actually for investigative journalists to hone in on that skill in story development. And yeah, so there's a culture of safety in numbers that can be explored there. But also, I wanted to point out the issue around digital security. Sandra mentioned it earlier. It is something that is quite close to our heart, something that we've been doing, including as part of DW's Women at Web project in 2018. Digital safety, digital literacy is at the heart of everything we do on a daily basis. I do not know if you quite appreciate and understand it, but it is at the heart of what we do. And as journalists, we need to prioritize that, not only for ourselves, but also for those sources we might happen to have. But also because of AI and its capacities. We are sitting here with our phones. I can guarantee you that many of us have apps on our phones which are recording or listening in on what is happening. We have our location on, which there are some practices that we need to be very aware of, because all of that information is data being collected and being sold without our consent. So I wanted to point that out. But yeah, I think at the heart of it all is we shouldn't demonize AI. It is here. And I think we've only seen the tip of the ice, what's it called?
Iceberg.
That one.
Right.
And then I also wanted to point out, we're talking about text, but we are seeing cases of images being manipulated.
Right.
We're seeing that being used against women. And it's going to get a whole lot worse. But yeah, we need to be aware of when to spot it and how to push back against it. Thank you.
Right. Thank you so much to you, Daniel, Caro, Emmanuel, and Juliet. Very brilliant submissions. At one point, I thought, am I in a class? This is a module of something, but I think there's some action points we are going to take from this panel. What are you going to do differently? Would you like to tell that to your neighbor? What will you do now that you know? What will you do? So have a quick chat with your neighbor as we move forward to the next panel. Thank you very much, and this has been very, very insightful. Do not fear AI. AI is your body. You just need to establish the rules of engagement of how you are going to use AI for your work as a journalist, also knowing that the perpetrator might have a meeting somewhere on how they will use AI or any other thing to discredit good journalism. So what has your neighbor told you? What are they going to do differently as I invite the next panel?
All right, I'll start with the VIP section. Good afternoon.
Good afternoon.
I'm quite well. What has your neighbor on your right told you she's going to do differently?
She's not feeling well. She has not even told me anything anyway.
She's still processing the information, eh? Real VIPs. Let me find out. Good afternoon.
Good afternoon to you.
What has your neighbor on your left told you she's going to do differently?
She told me, actually, she will continue to embrace artificial intelligence, but that will not actually kill creativity. The human intelligence can work hand in hand with artificial intelligence.
Absolutely.
Brilliant. Right. I think we've had a quick chat. Borrow something from your neighbor. Do something. All of us have a responsibility here to make it a better place for journalism and to learn something. I remember a famous quote. I hope I don't misquote it. That I think I read in a book by Ajebe that since birds have started to fly without perching, the hunters have learned to shoot without missing. So please, if you're the bird, yeah, learn how to what? Fly without perching, otherwise the hunter will get you. You've been told it's coming, get ready and prepare yourselves. There will be no surprises because at least the Uganda Media Week gave you a heads up. Right, and the panel here was very, very clear that you know what, you cannot remain on the periphery. Now, next we are going to our next panel, and almost the very last one. We won't take quite a long time on it, but it speaks to what we are talking about, public interest, and but still a key focus is on public service delivery. And how do we enhance democratic accountability, and then exploring the role of effective reporting and tracking budget performance for improved public service delivery. And on the panel, I am going to invite Adrapi Gabriel from Radio Parties in Arua. He is the news editor. And I am going to invite Sylvia Nancha from Uganda Radio Network. Welcome, Sylvia. We were last talking with her about local news last year, and she's back to talk to us about this this great subject. And then we have Nancy Minja from Jamii Forums. She's come all the way from the neighborhood, from Tanzania. And then we have Charity Aimbisiwe from the Electoral Laws and Governance Institute. Welcome, Charity. I'm inclusive. Okay. I better not say it. Okay, welcome to the very last panel. I can see you're already ready, energetic. It's going to be a good panel as we wrap up the Uganda Media Week, and these are very critical issues. Every time we come here, we use the road. There's very many public goods that we find ourselves using, but here are the critical issues that come: what happens, and who are the people behind it, and how do we enhance reporting about some of these issues. I am going to start with Gabriel, because he has been involved in a public service delivery project, in reporting about public service delivery that have been going on, and I just want to ask you to just give us some insight on what you have been doing and what have been the impact since you started. So broadly, so over to you, Gabriel.
Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. For the interest of time, I respect the protocol, and I'm just going to have my discussion narrowed to some angle. But first of all, just some brief introduction. She has already done part of it. My name is Gabriel Adrapi. I work with Radio Parties as assistant news editor, but in charge of community reporters, the citizen reporters we're talking about. And that's going to be my main focus. I do my work through this group of people. I've been in the media industry for the last 17 years. And just because of the body mass, somebody will think I'm 16 years. But that is a gift. I always think the best gift God has given me is my voice, and also the kind of mud that is used, the clay that is used for building me. I can still stay for another 50 years, though I'm already for more 50 years, but I'm only counting 5 years to get my NSSF. Talking about democracy and good governance, that has always been a subject of interest to me, because as I report for the public, I'm also a beneficiary in other ways. Because governance is supposed to do with the service delivery, and the service delivery is within the areas where we come from. It may be with the roads, it may be with the clean water in our area, social services that we need in our communities. Now, as the media, our role is to provide checks and accountability, because there are people who are interested to deliver these services. And that is the state. It is the people who are actually mandated, and we have our leaders who are elected in various positions, right from grassroots up to the parliament. And when they come to seek votes, they promise a lot. Bridges on the road where there's even no water, that is what they promise. But the problem has been, in many occasions, we stop with these people when they are only coming to request for votes and making all these promises. But when they are elected to go to the parliament or in the respective offices, there is no follow-up, there is no accountability. And that's why we have problems in the communities. Now, for the last 10 years, I've not been in the field reporting actively like I was doing before. Mine is to sit on the desk, but at least to work with a network of community reporters. Now, the citizen reporters we are talking about, there's a whole department created for these people, and the benefit of working with them are numerous. One, they are based in their locations. Just being based in their locations, it is easier to get first-hand information. Somebody was asking, how comes somebody is in Kampala and in the next 10, maybe 30 minutes, an accident has happened in Arua? This person has the information. How possible? Many of my colleagues who are based in Kampala, they use this network of community reporters who are called citizen reporters to get information. And we only need to see our contacts, because it may not be possible to be in Arua in 30 minutes and in the next 30 minutes to be in Kampala on everyday life. Many of the areas they report about is social services, as I talked about, issues to do with the markets, issues to do with the roads. They also tackle the aspect of human rights, because especially with the widows, normally after the death of the husband, what comes next is like the relatives of this deceased husband. Even in the next 1 week or in the next 2 months, they already prepare a feast, because they are looking at all what has been left behind and neglecting the widow and the children. Those are some of the stories we covered. And by exposing this, at least it attracts the attention of the people who are supposed to act. Then the aspect of corruption and the crime in our communities. There are fake NGOs who are going down in the villages, taking advantage of maybe the weak security system, defrauding people of their resources. There was that organization called ACID. They pitched the camp in Arua. They were collecting money from communities to pay school fees for their children. And it was the citizen reporters who exposed this. And the man was arrested as he was just in the act. Now, the community reporters, they have their limitations and they also have their strength. Just like we were talking about artificial intelligence. Now in the communities, these are people who are recruited by the church. They come from the Catholic Church. We call them correspondents, and they serve at the parish level. But there's nothing much to focus on education. It is simple. At least the person must have the level of senior 4. Now, when they come to the system, they may not actually cope up with the modern technology of processing and disseminating information. You find the situations where somebody is in Yumbe, this person cannot use the smartphone. There was a scenario, the radio parties actually procured smartphones for these citizen reporters, and they were supposed to take it at a cost price. There is one reporter, unfortunately, recently we lost him. May his soul rest in peace. He said, for me, at my age, I cannot use smartphone, even if you give it for free. They were about to trade. They totally rejected. They said they are used to the button phone because it doesn't need data. You just load airtime. They're not even calling direct. You just flash the newsroom, they call you back. For them, because of being in that comfort zone, they thought it was actually the best thing. But a serious journalist today will need at least the modern technology to get information, to do research. Now, while I was bringing that aspect, sometimes the information that we receive is shallow, simply because the category of reporters you work with may not be highly educated, and there is no much research. What is reported in the media, especially in the up country, I don't know how the situation here is. Especially, I'm talking about the broadcast media. It is just some shallow information, no much data. Sometimes you talk to one person and it is a story. Now it calls for serious gatekeeping, especially in these media houses, employing somebody who is at least experienced and educated to do gatekeeping and to do the intake.
Now, just to come back to you, that is really when you're trained. When they started covering public service delivery, did you train them, or they just started without any knowledge?
At first, they are nominated. Let me use that word. They are nominated by the church, and that is sometimes somebody who is always going to the church who is close to the parish priest. And once they are nominated, they may start without the training. But what we do, because we train them 3 times in a year,
Okay.
and if this person comes when the first session has gone, he or she will have to wait for the next. But in the meantime, we just give them basics. But in the region, I think it is only the network of community reporters who get regular trainings.
Right. And has that changed the way they're reporting about public service delivery?
Yeah, at least there is some big improvement. And when you listen to the news on radio parties, it is more unique than any other radio station because they are spread all over the region in all the districts of West Nile and the greater northern Uganda, though the northern part is not fully covered, but about 6 districts being covered. At least the way they report, every other time, the challenge is when you organize a training session like this, they come for the training. 1 month after the training, the folders are full. 2 months, the folders are just full and the stories are flowing. The 3rd month, I think the ideas are vanishing. It comes down. But at first, people did not know what public service is all about. They were simply reporting what like this. Because of the trainings that we had, there is much improvement in reporting the budget of the local government. At least following the budget, which step it is, and also looking at the work plans of the local governments and getting to the ground to find whether some of these work plans have been implemented. Looking at the revenue collection. At this time when donors are cutting aid, there has always been that dependence on the local, on the central government transfers. You find the local government is having 1 or 2% of the local revenue. Now the reality has come and it is now seen. Because of this constant engagement, they are able to follow the budgeting process and also challenging the system. Why certain things are budgeted but not being implemented. And that has actually helped in trying to seek accountability and also improving services within the communities.
Okay, thank you so much, Gabriel. And I think that's something I was really interested in finding out. You know, when you get the training on how to report public service delivery, are you able to again follow the money? The last, I think the last media week, Tabu asked us whether we have any social contracts with the politicians for them to be even accountable to us. Really, why are we asking them about the money? You know, if we are not going to, if you're not going to follow up on all of these things. So I'm just going to go straight to you, Sylvia. When we are closing in towards elections, you know, all of these manifestos, the stories about the manifestos come out, and all of these things come out. Then even every year we have a budget cycle. It all comes out. But how is it when you work with journalists all over the country? Are they following the money, and what are the challenges if they are doing so? And then any other insight that come from your side working across with journalists across the country, how is it in demanding accountability?
Thank you, Jan. I work with a network that has different layers of journalists. The first layer is the journalists that are trained. You would love to call them professional journalists because of their training and experience. But we have also a network of freelance writers. Some of them are not trained in journalism, but they are passionate about the work that journalists do, and they feed into our network. But we have also trained ordinary people and empowered them with the tools that they need to feed into the information that we get. Some of them, for instance, will not write a story in English, but they will tell you what is on the ground. They will not be able to explain, but they will record something.
maybe that has happened in the community where they live, and they send it to you. So when you listen to it and you feel it is something that makes sense and it's going to give you a good story, then you link that person to, we have bureau chiefs. We have like 18 bureaus across Uganda. And we link them to people, to a bureau chief who can then go to the ground and collect information and make sense of it and turn it into a news story. You talked about elections, but for me, my thinking is that service delivery and public service shouldn't really wait for that time of elections. It is, I mean, every day of our lives, we need services. That is what good governance is. That is why we have leaders and the people who are led, like me. But it also depends on what public service means for you. Maybe for you, it's a good road. And for me, it's access to internet. You understand? Maybe it is access to water for someone deep in the village, and for another person, it's an air ticket, a ticket to go and rest in the Maldives. So we don't look at public service with the same lens, yet we are actually supposed to look at it that way, because these are issues that affect all of us. Yeah. When we talk about the government reads out a budget every year, and the same word is mentioned. Jinja, Njeru, Buikwe, Mokono, Kampala. It is mentioned this year, it is mentioned the next year, it is mentioned the other year. But then we also sit back and read, and write a story actually, that the Minister of Finance has said this year they are going to construct the road from, from Kampala.
We reported about.
Yeah?
The same road we reported about.
Exactly. You reported about it last year. This year it's coming up. But we don't ask the questions. We are comfortable with the lies. And we do not push these people to tell us what happened last year. I mean, this road was mentioned in the budget. What happened? Was there no money? Is there some work going on the ground? Is there some compensation? Is there some mapping being done? And I mean, I haven't seen a lot of those stories coming up. I have seen so many stories, including in my network, of us, repeating what the ministers have said and saying less of what the people deserve. Not what they want, but what they deserve. If we deserve good roads, why are we not talking about them? Why do we wait for Spire to have an exhibition online? If we do not have, if our schools are bad, if the education standards are going down, apart from listening to the Minister of Education saying, we commit, we are going to do this and that, and we go ahead and write what she has said, why are we not asking the hard questions? I know that there are people who have asked the questions, but we haven't gotten the answers. So should we shut up because we haven't had the answers? Can we please continue asking these questions and make sure that our people, the audience that we serve, gets what they deserve?
Okay, are you asking the question about the road you use? Are you asking about the services in your hospital? Other journalists, have you gone there? Are we actually demanding accountability, or we are going to show up on the last day of the budget line when they're reading the budget, and that's when we start asking the questions we should have asked when they first put out the first announcement they're going to start. We're going to start setting out for the budget of the annual year. So those are very important questions to ask ourselves. Now I just want to move straight to Nancy. I see Jamii Forum has something called Fichua Uovu or Toa Tarifa. I think it would help for you to interpret what that means, but I find that still relates to public service delivery and at least the involvement, the participation of the public in all of this. So please share with us.
Asante.
Karibu.
Once again, my name is Nancy Minja. I am from Jamii Forums. Jamii Forums is an NGO based in Tanzania, And the goal for Jamii Forums is for citizens, but specifically netizens, to make informed decisions. But how do these people make informed decisions? By providing access and for timely and credible information to them. Yes, but we also advocate for democracy, accountability, civic rights, and digital rights. So coming back to your question, for Tanzania, we went through a period where the media was, I would say, was robbed, yes, of their voice. So it was so difficult for somebody or for a media to report something that is going wrong or something that is not right with the government. So uh, Jamii Forums has been there for over 20 years as a platform. For those who have visited Jamii Forums platform, it's the platform that promotes Swahili content, and it's a platform where discussions are going on. Yeah, mostly about different things, be it political, be it social, anything. There are different forums in there where people discuss. So noticing that journalists miss the voice, or certain things, certain important things that are supposed to be communicated to the communities are not, Jamii Forums came up with a tool. The tool is called Fichua Wovu. So let me take you back a little bit. So Jamii Forums is a platform that you can register with using either your name or a pseudonym. So, for instance, I'm Nancy Minja. You guys know me as Nancy Minja. But in the Jamii Forums platform, I want to be known maybe by a pen, maybe. So I can call myself Pen in Jamii Forums. And I can register by using a new email, which I do not use anywhere. And Jamii Forums will use that email just to remind you of your password if you have forgotten. But it will not track your IP address. So that makes somebody calling themselves a pen in Jamii Forums, even Jamii Forums doesn't know who that person is in real life. So that made it easy for people to be able to whistleblow issues in the platform. So yeah, so we came up with a tool. Somehow we noticed that people are whistleblowing, but somehow the issue of self-censorship was too heavy on people. So we created a tool that people would report, and it would come out as anonymous. As I said, I may call myself a pen, but I have been chatting, I've been conversating, I've been talking to other people. So other people, maybe somebody can know that a pen is Nancy. So when I use the Fichua Wovu portal, it will be posted as anonymous. So anybody from anywhere in Tanzania can whistleblow either if you were safe that my identity in the platform, nobody knows, you can use your identity. But if you fear that somebody knows my identity, you can whistleblow through the Fichua Wovu. And when somebody puts in information in the Fichua Wovu, it's fact checked. So this brings another function that Jamii Forums does, is fact check information. Yes, so we have a fact checking portal called Jamii Check. That's another story. Yeah, so the information is fact checked, then it is published. After being published, it is also delivered to the specific institution. Maybe there is no water supply, maybe in Mwanza region, for example. So this information will be posted and it will be shared across other platforms. And we have an advantage that we have a big following, and we have government institutions following. So if the information is posted, it is easy for them to see the information and work on the issue. Yeah.
Wow. So if I write that the school in Butaleja doesn't have windows, you send this message to the minister, to the district education team, and then also to the Minister of Education, and then they take action. So how do they demonstrate that they have done something?
Okay, I would give an example. We had an issue of ticks, no, bed bugs, sorry, in a certain university in Tanzania. So somebody from the university, we saw blew the issue that the university is full of bed bugs. And as Jamii Forums, we posted the issue. And later, like after 2 days, the university fumigated the area. So I would say that there are a lot of impacts that we get just by posting, and we get the response. Another issue is there's a certain market in Dar es Salaam. It was like too dirty. Yes, the ward office is not collecting the waste. Yes, so we posted that, but 3 to 4 days there was actually a statement about it. Yeah.
People in the forum, or you also read them outside the forum?
No. They read the information through the forum. Yes.
Right. Okay, brilliant. I think it's a really nice idea. So if I want to report my boss who is very corrupt, I call myself a pen, and I said the boss of okay, not media focus. No. The boss of a certain institution has actually just embezzled 6 billion shilling that was meant for a bridge, right? And then I send it to Jamii Forums, and then the investigations. I mean, just posting it there enough to, I believe, draw attention to what is missing. And maybe then, how do journalists come in? Do we now come in and find the information from there, or you also send us the information?
So we work with journalists across the country. Yes, and I would say some of the information that we get, the issues that are being whistleblowed are whistleblowed by journalists. Yes, but also most of them are citizens journalists. Yes, but the professional, not so much, but they are there. Yes. So, sorry, what did you ask?
This is just that I wanted to know how the journalists come in.
Yes. So that's what they do. But we also have like trainings for investigative journalism. My colleague said, for public service delivery, we do not have to wait for the maybe CAG's report for us to know that certain project in a certain place was not completed because of so and so reason. We have journalists over there. These journalists could whistleblow or could bring this issue out even before the CAG report. But like I said, there is the issue maybe of self-censorship.
Right.
The journalists do not report
About
bring
the story.
bring up such stories.
Okay, thank you so much. So if Jamii Forum is doing the work and we are safe, so we leave them to do it. Okay, that's an interesting platform, and I think it would be nice to see how that would pan out in Uganda. But now let's get to Charity here. Sylvia mentioned a bit that we don't have to wait for a portal exhibition online to do our work as journalists, and I want to, especially in terms of public service delivery. Answering, I just want you to answer to that. Has our watchdog role shifted to the people who are being spoken about on the other end of journalism, the content creators, the online, I don't know, we call them activists and everything. And so how do we do we need to take it back, and how do we address this fact that other people are doing our work, yet we are trusted, we are the ones who have been trusted to be at the front line, right?
And that is the question of citizen journalism. Is that what you're asking me? Now, most certainly, one thing that came out throughout the discussion this afternoon was the question of standards. We had a problem of standards that as journalists, we often forget to maintain the standard as a journalist. We also have principles and we have objectives that govern the journalism script. But journalists often forget the principles, and that is objectivity, honesty, and having the other voice come and be integrated in the writing. And we also have, what other principles? I think about 4 or 5. Yes, accuracy, thank you, and fairness. And fairness ties in perfectly with the question of democracy, accountability, and transparency. Because when you put out this whole thing of democracy, sometimes the question is, so what? So what about your democracy? So what? The truth is, so what is the whole constitution from beginning to the end is democracy. It is a social contract between you and the government. And she is saying, do we actually have that social contract? Is it there? Does society understand that they have that contract with government? And my thinking is that they don't understand, but neither do the journalists appreciate that that social contract exists. Because if the journalists appreciated that the social contract between the citizens and the state existed, then we wouldn't have problems with every time journalists report anything. Yesterday there was a headline about the lion's share going to the West. You should have seen all the reactions that have happened. Daily Monitor, it's now biased. They've paid them. Suddenly, they are only writing about the West. And then they have even asked them to add Central into the headline. When I saw that coming from Noob, I said, Jesus, what's going on in Uganda? Because who would pay Daily Monitor now to drop Central into the headline? Because I was saying, look, Northern produced 20% of the share of the jobs in Uganda, and the highest number of jobs was going to the West. Now, does it surprise us that for the last 40 years, the West has been in power and many people from the West are going to school and they're trying to find jobs and they're trying to be in places and they use their connections and relatives in places to be in places, and now there is a lion's share, even in MDGs, in government offices. How do we shift? How do we shift the balance? Is the big question we should be thinking about as citizens who are interested in a government being accountable to us. Because the government should not only consider the West for the jobs of the West and the Central, because that is where the government sits, but it should consider the Northern, it should consider the Eastern, it should consider the whole country. Now, if you are talking social contract, and I just want to draw back to democracy. What is democracy? It's the government of the people, by the people, for the people. It is simple definition for me. Always better we start with basic simplicity. Now, if it is the government for the people, who are the people? Who are the people? That should be the question. Is it the journalists who are the people? Is it the citizens who are the people? Who are they? And do they have control? Do they have a say? And who is for the people? Who is it? Who is it? And who can make them be for the people? Is it the people? Who are? These are the questions that we should be tinkling with in the media to cause conversation. We should go out there and ask these questions. Who are the people? Is it only the West that are the people? Is it the East that are the people? Is it the Central that are the people? Who are the people? Draw the ticker, drop it in there. Let's have the conversation. Because until we do this, and unfortunately we only have 2 million people online,
right?
According to the statistics,
On social media.
On social media, but also online. Basically, they said those are the people who are using online platforms. I thought the number that I saw with Afrobarometer was 5 million. But Zipesa says they see 2 million. I think we need to reconcile that number. The 5 million helped us during the time Bobby Wine stood as a candidate in 2021. Why? Because they were asking critical questions. They were going online, they became masks, and they asked things they could not ordinarily ask Because when you're seated there and asking a very big political question, then you're going to be shut down. But if you're a mask behind a certain computer, maybe they will not trust you. You're a robot, you're a bot, you're anything, you're AI, you have put a voice out there. Ask these things. So if we have a society like the Ugandan society, let's not wait and die in our potholes. It will catch up with us. Let's not wait for the hospitals to get dangerously terrible. It will catch up with us, whether you are in NUP, whether you're in NRM, whether you're in DP, it will catch up with you. You will get to the hospital and there's no doctor caring for you and your patient will die. You don't have money. They're asking you for 70 million. You don't have where to get it from. You're desperate. It will catch up with you. So if you know it will catch up with you, can the journalists take the lead?
Okay, thank you. What a challenge! Is it that easy, Sylvia and Gabriel, to publicly go after the guy who holds the budget? The guy who holds the budget is the cow, right? You know, is it that easy? And to go openly, I mean, with all the strength that Charity is giving us here, what's the middle ground? I think I will briefly answer that, and then also we can hear the same from Sylvia.
Yeah, it is easy, but it has to start right from the planning process. In many occasions, you find the media only comes when the budget is now at that level. Maybe when the budget review workshops are taking place, that's when they come. But planning starts right from the lower level until when it comes to this level, and also knowing the work plan. One issue that I wanted to add is actual for the media. First of all, for us to succeed in our work, we need to educate the audience that we are serving to know their rights, empower them to demand for accountability. It becomes easy for us. If I'm going to talk about the potholes in Arua, and I'm talking alone as a journalist, they will say this is from NUP. But if the community is talking about the potholes in Arua city, it is easy. Then service delivery, why are some particular areas not developing and yet services are duplicated in particular areas? Is it where the chairman is coming from? Is he using the public resources for rewarding his voters who voted for him during the elections? We need to know, like, who has the power and how is this power being used? And when we are coming to report on the budget, what I see as a challenge sometimes, what is uploaded by the local governments is different from what you actually find as a hard copy with them. I don't know where the variation is coming from. But now, when we follow the system, when we know the people who are in office, the powers they have, the allocation of resources, and if this cow knows that this person is informed, there's no way you're going to be denied that information. In case he's denying, but you have been following the budget system right from the start, whether he's going to give you information, you already have the information. We only go there to verify, not to get the information from the cow, but only to verify, to cross-check. Then the other item which I skipped was drug deliveries in health centers, which is a very big problem, simply because we report about the problems. Shortage of drugs in health centers, that's when we come to report. But if we get ourselves, we actually try to inform ourselves, knowing the system of drug delivery, the schedules that are in place, and you know the population in your area that is actually supposed to receive the drugs, it becomes easy. Now, what is being supplied? Is it what the common people need in their area? Are they essential drugs? Or there is just a tendency of putting for the health centers what is there? Because we are talking about service delivery, in my district, there's a health center called the Oli Health Center. There was a request made for drugs, but what the national medical stores delivered was condoms. They supplied enough condoms
Enough.
and also TB drugs. And yet, especially the number of TB patients in that lower unit, they are few, though they can share this with other health centers. So those are some of the areas where we need to come in and try to put a voice.
Sylvia, just, okay, drugs, okay. Please.
Yes, Jan, it actually shouldn't be hard to get information. We have the Access to Information Act. If systems were working, if systems were working, it shouldn't really be hard for us to get information. But also, I want to ask: are we putting the systems to a test?
Right.
Because before I come here and say I couldn't get information from this office,
Right.
who did I talk to? How did I ask for this information? Did I follow? Did I test the procedure to see if actually it works? I want to believe that it shouldn't be hard to get information today, because you see, lately, even the most sacred of letters ends up on social media. There's someone who is always willing to give you information. Before I became an editor and found myself on the desk full time, I used to cover Parliament. I was a journalist. I was a field person. And sometimes you would walk the corridors of Parliament as many times as possible without getting information. But then you talk to a secretary or a cleaner and you get information that you least expected. There's always someone who is willing to give you information. But also I want to believe that if we are deliberate as journalists, deliberate in amplifying community voices,
Right.
deliberate in talking to the people on the ground. Quite often we have this bag of speaking to the people in authority. If I talk to the cow and the district chairperson and the RDC, I have a story, regardless of what they are saying. Exactly. So I think that we have let the public down, and public trust in what we do is waning. That is why you find that people are comfortable going to TikTok, X, and Facebook, reading whatever is posted there. It doesn't matter whether it is true, verified, or false, or misleading, but they will go and you find someone arguing in a discussion based on what they read on Facebook, because they no longer trust us. We have denied them the voices long enough. Now they have the platforms they can use to also post and share information and access information from whoever is posting. But I want to believe that we can win this public trust back. Someone earlier in the panel that was before the one on AI talked about going back to the drawing board. That discussion was about feminism. But even in our work as journalists, it is time we went back to the drawing board and increased authentic voices in the media. Then we have the issues coming from the community upwards, as opposed to having the president talking down to the people, the district chairperson is talking down to the people, and all the leaders that we have. After all, we no longer trust them that much, do we?
Right. Do we trust them? Nancy, do you want to just speak a bit to the thoughts?
Adding to what she said, it is very evident, for instance, in Tanzania, that the public look up to journalists, but journalists are failing the public. We have a lot of, in Swahili we say amesema news. Amesema is like the district officer said, the regional commissioner said, the president said. It is not more of what the citizens said. So, like I said, going back to investigative journalism, we feel like it is important for journalists to go down to citizens and hear what they say and write in the perspective of the citizen towards the leader and not the other way around. Yeah, also on the issue of information fact checking. So journalists like I said, citizens look up to journalists, but there's this trend in Swahili, we call it uchawa. Yeah, uchawa in English, chawa is tick. So there are a lot of journalists, political leaders who are being like ticks to the political leaders so that they can get favors, they can get positions. So a journalist will notice there is a problem in the community. Maybe there is no water, maybe the health services are bad, but because the leader of that specific community calls him or her when he has this, like press conferences and all, and he gives him some money, he will not speak of that. So again, they are failing the citizens. The citizens expect their voices to be heard, but instead, the journalists are putting a blind eye. Yes, another example I would say, we receive whistleblower issues from citizens mostly, maybe in a very remote area. But there are community radios, there are journalists there, but they don't talk about those issues. But rather, a citizen from that area will call Yami forums and whistleblow, or will write in Yami forums. But there are professional journalists who could actually write the story even better. But we have to gather pieces and understand what this person is wanted to say, because they're not as they're not good as writing as the professional journalists. So if professional journalists would have done the job of actually reporting citizens' problems, I think so we would be talking about service delivery in a whole other level.
Different way.
Yeah.
Okay, thank you very much. And I'm coming back to you, Charity. How do these guys get re-elected when they lied to us for 5 years? We'll come back to that. But any questions to the panel, any submissions before we come back to them, Kenan? Yes, I can see.
Thanks so much for the presentation, the panel. My name is Ivan Otim. I just want to bring into a discussion, which I don't know, I'm not a journalist. I can profoundly call myself a development professional. There is something that, while the panelists were talking about, especially my sister from Tanzania, and how that Jamia Forum creates some levels of change, something came to my mind and say, how do we, for example, I'll coin it and say data journalism. How do we improve on the journalism that reflects with data? For example, when you look at the stories that have come out from the war in Ukraine and how that propelled Europe and then America to kind of react very so quickly, you really get to know that the role of data in journalism is very critical. And when you read the stories in Uganda, for example, here, I don't know, you read the story, very, very well written, but it's like it is lacking some quantifying, I don't know how I can say, so basically some quantifying truth in the story so that someone who is either a duty bearer can be able to understand that there is some issue within this story. Because beyond just the story you're writing, from the end of people that are consuming this content, they'll look at these words as just words and say, okay, for example, there's no water in a hospital for months. But can someone turn that story in how, what's the cost of inaction in that? Because then when there's no water in a hospital for a month, what does that mean? So I want a journalist who's able to give me data in a story so that when I'm able to read it, if I'm a duty bearer, I can feel that if I don't act tomorrow, then I don't have to deserve to be in office. So I don't know if someone can respond to that issue that I'm trying to put on the table. Thank you.
Thank you so much. My name is Andrew Aijuka, and I come from Infonile. Infonile, we are an organization that brings together journalists that report mostly on science, water, and environment issues. But of course, we also do capacity building for journalists. That's in data visualization, but also data journalism as a whole, course. My brother was speaking about data lacking in some of our stories. It is true. This is a new phenomenon for most of the newsrooms because you realize that most journalists actually try to run away from math. But you realize that you can't run away from figures regardless. So, about the figures, it can only come in if we learned how to specialize. So, when we were studying journalism, we had business journalism, science journalism. There were those kind of journalism aspects that they broke down during our bachelor's. But you realize that when you get into the newsroom, it is general happiness. You're reporting generally. And basically, because you have MDs that maybe are political or they're into this because of profits, there is nothing really that comes out of news that is really tangible, that someone can feed on, or that a policymaker actually can table in parliament and say, according to this story, we need to have this changed. You get me? So there is a need for us as journalists to part ways from this general happiness. Because everyone is reporting about NOB, then you're also into NOB. You get me? So, for example, I've been a journalist since 2010. I started out as an intern, I think when Sarah just started the reporter thing, I'm sorry, Pen, who can't no longer be here with us, but we continue praying for him. But the thing is that at that point, we had at least editors who would tell us, Andrew specialized in sports, Amon specialized maybe in environment, maybe Nabatanze specialized in business. That way, you are able to go down into this niche that you're specialized in and get the data. So, for example, I'm a water journalist, okay? I just wrote something about, how Uganda, the whole of its budget, only 3% of that budget goes to environment and water issues. Now, imagine a country that spends only 3%. That means out of 1,000 shillings, only 300 is going to the water and environment things. You get me? So if my brother, what there is saying is that if he can get such concrete evidence with numbers to show that actually you get these monies and put it in water, so don't expect water to be enough for the population. Okay? So I believe that once we measure, once we go down into the niches, we are able to bring down this data that also policymakers can use to bring these guys to make the leaders accountable. The other thing that I wanted to talk about before maybe I close, as newsrooms or as media organizations, we should get into a thing of taking back stories to communities. Okay? So you do a story and just go away. You write whatever you have written. You haven't even gotten back to the community to fact check whether actually what you wrote resonates with what they told you. Okay? So at Infonile, when we realized that, we came up with things like exhibitions and screenings. Once we do a story, we make sure we try to get funding. We take back this story to the community. There we invite the community and the leaders. Okay? And once this story is being shown, or these photos are being shown, or this film is being shown, we make sure the leaders are there to interact with the people. After that, we tell the leaders to commit to whatsoever that they think they are going to do. That way, even if you don't follow up so much, the people are able to make this leader accountable. Because remember, this is a public thing you've made. You've made a commitment that I will make sure I will build maybe a higher leveled lift for the people to access the board. This was in report. We put together the learning side people, and they actually tasked their leader to make sure that, they had better lives. So I'm thinking we should try to think out of the box and try to take these stories back to the people that are told from them, and then these people have the solutions. We journalists don't have the solutions. I'm not an expert from Mayuge. I don't know Mayuge, but someone from Mayuge knows how they have been dealing with the elements of people coming in and planting these trees and taking away their land. So those are my issues. Let's have niches and then let's try to take back stories to the people so that we can get their views and these policies can be tabled to Parliament with evidence. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Andrew. Well, as we wrap up, I'm just going to hear from Lily, and then we'll come 1 second, and then we'll.
Thank you very much. My name is Lily. We have had the issues of service delivery, no accountability, but for us in Karamoja there, we have issues like scandals, and we are basing on the media house, and you're trying to bring out issues like scandals maybe over the media. But sometimes you find there are issues like when leaders hear this information that has been released in the media, they start following you up that you're a problem or you're decampaigning such a person. Now, I want the personals or the professionals to advise us maybe in Karamoja, what are other criteria or other measures do we use in order to advertise the information, especially to the locals?
Maybe to supplement on that, my name is Edna PH. I work with a New Vision. I'm based in Arua. Supplementing on what she has said, it's really hard from an experience accessing information, especially. I had a draftist say that yes, for the budget conference, it's a process. I do believe it's a process. It starts from the planning process. But again, seeking information, getting the nitty-gritties becomes a little hard. From those so-called creme de la creme of the city, of the districts, and what have you. I'm talking out of experience. I recently, let's say 2-3 months ago, I had a challenge. I wanted some information about disaster preparedness, something from one of the officials in the city. And he kept on telling me, let's meet tomorrow, call me tomorrow, call me the following, and I think I lost it. I just told him I'm getting another source, someone who will act in your capacity. But this guy reported me. He actually wanted me to apologize, and then I'm like, like my radio editors, my radio editors were like, but Edna, you must apologize. You must apologize. I dodged. So one day we meet with this guy in a social, place, and then I walk up to him. I'm like, but what you did was wrong. What you did was wrong. You've put me in this problem. You've actually caused a rift between me and my supervisors, which is not right. Why were you denying me information? That is not my information. It's public information. You should have given it out. And imagine what I was doing, disaster preparedness. And look what's happening in the country at the moment. So he apologized, but of course it wasn't on record. And we pushed on, we moved on. So accessing information is really hard. The access of information, the act, let's say, it's also, yes, we talk about it here. Sylvia, you were saying, yes, it's it's also a process. Yes, but imagine me, I am working on this story, and it has a deadline, and they need it, let's say in a day, 2 days, 3 days, and then I have the whole 2 weeks to apply.
for the access or accessing of information. I have to fill in to apply, and it will take me about 2 weeks. So it would actually take long. So what I'm saying is, I think these policies, as let's say media and civil society organizations, you need to push for more remedies, or for more faster policies that can help us in accessing information.
Thank you, Edna. Sorry, I'm denying you access to the microphone longer because time. But I saw her asking me to allow us to say something briefly, please.
Thank you, Jan. My name is Betty Mujungu. I think the conversation here is really, really timely about public interest and public service delivery reporting. First of all, as journalists, we live in these communities. You know, this is our community, and we are responsible in making it better, a better community. You realize that local governments, where we come from, I come from Port Portal, so I'm the local content lady here. So we know that accountability, that we say that holding our leaders accountable is a process, and it begins so early. The budget conferences begin right from the village level, go to the ward level, go to the divisions, go to the districts, and like this season already, the budget call circular is out. And usually as journalists, I think if we do not interest ourselves from the really planning level, then it's hard for us to get it when it's already out. I know that every local government has a 5-year development plan, which is very aligned to the national development plan, aligned to all these plans of the country, and also aligned with the SDGs. And all these tools out there have a lot of information for us to tell and hold our leaders accountable. But the only challenge is that as media houses, as journalists, we choose personal interests and public relations reporting. There are media houses that still air stories about he said, and then they said, and yet there are very serious issues, very serious accountability and development issues in all our spaces. So for me, I think that we should actually rethink what kind of content we are putting out there, because it's from that content that people make decisions. It's what you put out that people, that inform their decisions. So if we decide to put out information that doesn't check people, that doesn't actually give people the chance to make right decisions, we are part of these communities. Today, we may be where we are, but you don't know what tomorrow brings. Your child will catch up with a community that doesn't have services, or even your mother in the village. For us, up country, we love to say that the Kampala journalists are not setting the agenda the right way, because really the Kampala journalists set the agenda for us, because it all happens here in Kampala. Even when we are struggling and going to the grassroots, getting these stories, they don't end up on the front pages of these media houses. So you struggle to ensure that this smallest community where you come from is probably getting the services. But then when you look at what is in the media in Kampala, it's all entertainment on TVs, it's all Rugambo, it's actually nothing that sets the agenda. Remember, we are agenda setters, and we should be able to consider what kind of agenda we are setting for the country. Like one of the speakers said, there are many questions that we can ask around public service delivery, very many of them. And then to say something about Jamii forums, I wish that we had such a platform here in Uganda, really, where someone can report anonymously. I know a friend, a very close friend, who almost lost a job because there was this corruption issue in his media, not media house, but he's a public relations officer of a government institution. So there was this corruption issue that he felt he needed to share with a journalist, at least to tell this story. Surprisingly, the journalist that he contacted to tell the story did tell the story very well from Daily Monitor. But I think the bosses really got concerned how this could come out. And surprisingly, the journalist later revealed the person that gave him that information. And the guy, since he's in forces, he was demoted from some rank to the lowest rank. So it is hard to think that even when you think that you need to do probably the best in terms of accountability, without a forum where you can anonymously report anything, it really gets hard. Even when you feel that it is my duty to probably safeguard this, to tell this, it really gets hard for any person. We need to be alive so that we can continue telling these stories. Thank you.
Right, thank you so much. That's an unfortunate story, really. And coming back to you, panelists, I'm going to have a social contract with you for 1 minute, right? Yeah, 1 minute is 1 minute, right? But also we'll have time to network and we'll be able to share some of these things one-on-one with people. So I'm going to start with Charity because you are the one who was next previously. Yeah. Okay.
1 minute. Let me attempt that social contract. I hear 2-3 things that I don't want us to leave this room without reflecting about. Number one, that we have corrupt journalists now who have become praise singers for individuals. They write stories, oh, the speaker, oh, now deputy speaker, oh, it is so and so. And that is what you're seeing as the agenda that is being set. Sit on the journalist platforms and see these things happening. Journalists have been put inside pockets. They have forgotten their cardinal role of transforming society. We need to challenge ourselves to go back to the drawing board. Why did you join journalism? If you just joined it to make money, please go start your online platform and make money on the online platform. But if you are in the newsroom, you have an agenda to develop Uganda. That is one. Two, every media house should deliberately choose to set an agenda, remain consistent, okay? Remain consistent with that agenda continuously. I tell you, the price of setting an agenda and remaining consistent is very difficult. I work in a civil society space where sometimes you don't even have funding, but because you believe in a cause, you push it using your pocket, using your head, using your brain, using idea, because that is what you believe. You believe you want to see a democracy. You want to see things functioning well for Ugandans. So you go out every day, even when you don't have a salary, even when you know you're going to wake up tomorrow and they are chasing after you, but you want a better Uganda. Those are the journalists we should be pushing for. Now, iron sharpens iron. So we need more media weeks that more journalists will sharpen each other. I thank you.
Okay. 1 minute contract.
Okay, in this, actually, we are ending our contract with you. Now, there are 3 issues that I can handle in 1 minute in response. One, complicated cows who do not want to give information. Since this information we are looking for starts from the grassroots, just like I said before, we only come to them to verify. Where they are not cooperating with you, you can go online to check the budget. I think all the budget for the nation is online. Just type my budget, know your budget, at least you will find if it is something to do with the figures. Then Karamoja leaders who are threatening journalists, if the meaning of democracy remains the same, government of the people by the people, which means people decide on how they should be governed. And just like we said before, start your issues with the people. If you talk about the pothole as a journalist, They will think you have an agenda and they will come for you. But engage the communities, since it is the communities who are giving a mandate to the leaders to be in that office. When they come, they will refer to the communities. Then specialization. Somebody talked about media houses need to have some specialization. Sometimes it's not possible just because of the thin manpower in some of the media houses. You find one person is almost doing like 5 different things. So it is sometimes difficult, but ideally, I will actually embrace the idea of specialization so that in that particular field, you gain more knowledge and you report accurately in that same industry. That's all.
Okay, I want to believe that there is no journalism without facts and figures. And this is what is being traded as data journalism. If you do not have facts and you cannot put figures in your story, then what are you writing? It can be any other writing, but not a journalistic piece. If we go back to that level, then it answers the question, the submission by Ivan, and partly by Andrew. And it's not even about math. Facts are not mathematical. This is the basic. You're going out to the field to inform. That's what we say. I'm a journalist because I'm going to inform. So if you don't give me facts and figures, then what are you informing me? What are you telling me? These days we say tebalina kye batugamba. Kati naffe, it seems tetulina kye tugamba bantu if we cannot give them facts and figures. So let's ensure that at least we get that. As we step out, what fact are you bringing? What are you informing me? That's something that I didn't know that you're telling me. And if you don't have it, then stay silent, don't say anything, because you're not contributing anything to the profession.
Wow. Mwisho.
Asante. So my last takeaway in this conversation is, I think as journalists, we need to reclaim our positions as the watchdog of the community. Let us remind the voters of what their governments promised them. We are, for instance, in Tanzania, we are approaching elections again, and probably because of not knowing, we are going to elect the same people who probably didn't do enough for us. So I think as journalists, we should be, at this critical time, we should be reminding the citizens of what we were promised earlier, of what targets were set. Are they met? Are they not? Why are they not met? Yeah. So, and on another note is, I think as journalists, we need to redefine our narratives as African countries. When we go online, there's so much content, but how much content is written by ourselves that explains about ourselves, about our countries, about our governments? So I feel like as journalists, we need to write more, even on the best practices. What has worked in providing effective service delivery, what has not, so that in the future, when someone's goes to Google or goes to search about it, they can get the best practices. Yeah.
Thank you very much, Nancy, Sylvia, Gabriel, and Charity. They are still here. We will have to speak to them. And again, remember, public interest and the future of journalism and AI have been a key conversation. And as we see, there's need for more training. There's need to go out there and be a journalist. The principles of ethical and good journalism have never changed. The facts can be data. The facts can be math. Whatever way you fragment it, is the spine, is the backbone of journalism the same? And that's very important. Then that means actually fact checking is something that you're supposed to do. You may not need extra training for fact checking in some other instances, because facts and truth are actually part of journalism. So thank you all again. I would like to close this panel to remind the citizens to check what they had agreed with their electorate. It's almost, we're also on the same path with you, but you wait 1 year to the elections, we're going to all start falling over ourselves, writing the story, then doing all the election reporting, but public service delivery happens every day. While the politicians set themselves up for the next elections immediately, we start 2 weeks for elections to start asking where the bridge is. What are the chances that that bridge will be built? Actually, it has been converted to election posters. So it has been a long day, and I thank you for staying with us. And right now, I'm going to invite Mr. Hassan Shire, who is the Executive Director of Defend Defenders, and he has been a human rights defender for over 20 years and has led in building instrumental coalitions for the protection of human rights. Do we agree that media rights are human rights? Yeah, so let's stand up as we welcome him, and then hear his closing remarks. How do we proceed from here? Welcome, Mr. Hassan.
Good evening. I think there's a task the whole day in a room and with such a powerful panels, one after another, addressing to you without getting much of interactions with them, because I didn't know the other sessions. I watched the last one. Itself is a task for an activist, journalist to remain here, because journalists talk too much, right?
Yeah.
So there was a report Amnesty International produced, it called, "Be careful, you talk too much." So it means when you talk too much, there will be some problems here and there. But I can trust I want to stand in between you and the right break you deserve. Waiting for, it's not working even, with some drinks. Tea. We have to change that. Okay. The team leader, media focus on Africa, media executives and trainers, members of the fourth state, all protocols respectfully observed. Let me start by thanking Ms. Jane Achwan for the gracious invitation. And I'm surprised now, as I was staying here for some time, the energy within which she conducted herself in moderating all the sessions. I assume she was standing here. It's good to be here with you all and to see some familiar faces. I also appreciate that after a whole day of intense discussion, you are still here. The responsibility you carry as a journalist and media houses is a very intense one. Every other day, over 40 million Ugandans are counting on you to be in the know of what's happening in public office corridors, in corporate boardrooms, on construction sites, and other field spaces, to report all of it factually, fairly, and in a balanced manner. This responsibility also means you are guardian of some of the most fundamental human rights and freedoms, like the right to access to information and the freedom of expression, both of which lie at the heart of accountable government. The Universal Declaration of Human Rights, 75 years now celebrating, reaffirms that in Article 19, and the Constitution of the Republic of Uganda. Ladies and gentlemen, and maybe people who are in between, this is why the defenders will consider journalists and media houses as frontline human rights defenders. And you agree, you are frontline human rights defender. Yes. According to the UN Declaration on Human Rights defenders are persons or entities who individually or collectively act, that's more important, to protect and promote human rights using peaceful means. You all do this every day when you use your personal and media platforms to shed light on injustice, to hold those in positions of responsibility accountable,
and to give voice and expression to ordinary folks and to advocate for the public good, all in service of public interest. And yet, this is also why they are among the most endangered of human rights defenders. In 2022, the Human Rights Network for Journalists Uganda, whose executive director is with you here, Mr. Robert, my friend, received and recorded 94 cases of human rights violations and abuses against journalists and media practitioners. As we speak, at least 37 journalists have been killed in the ongoing Israel-Hamas conflict in Gaza because as others sought refuge in nearest available shelters, they courageously stayed on the front line, seeking to keep us updated on the human tragedy unfolding in those spaces. Unfortunately, this is a familiar reality. Every year, tens of journalists are killed as they go about their work in service of the public interest. Not tens, hundreds, sometimes thousands. Last year, that number stood at 68, a 50% increase from the number killed in 2021. While it's not death trap, journalists are constantly threatened, harassed, and censored by either corporate interests, state security operatives, or draconian laws designed to silence them. And we were hearing some of the participants here, even though they file a viable story which can make a great scoop of headline, is being rejected simply because it can. I also being told by some credible journalists, while they do investigative journalism and they manage to push that into the studio, headline has been read, story coming. But when the details were supposed to become, it dies in between. Story. So that's also some of the facts, unfortunately, which you live with. Often, all these threats tend to find cynical convergence here in Africa. In addition to physical and legal threats, government tend to use advertising business as a carrot and stick to influence media reporting, which has the long-term effect of systematically censoring critical media. In the recent past, the Africa's predominantly young population has embraced new media to circumvent institutional compromises of traditional media. African governments have adopted with increasingly routine internet shutdown to counter the liberating power of citizen journalism, which some of you have spoken. This year alone, there have been at least 12 internet shutdowns by 6 African governments across the sub-Saharan Africa, which have thwarted citizens' ability to scrutinize electoral processes or report on rights violation in a situation of conflict. This reality media stakeholders must confront as you seek to produce news faster and report more efficiently. Thanks to advent new digital tools, states are looking at these same tools to devise new weapons of repression. Many of you have heard, if not been victims, of spyware tools like Pegasus, which governments are using to hack phones of activists, journalists, and other critical voices, infringing on not only their right to privacy, but also undermining their ability to investigate and report news. At defenders, and I want to ask you really in the room, even though some of you are still around, how many of you know, I'll say first its long name, and now it's a new name. East and Horn of Africa Human Rights Defenders Network, now called Defenders. Raise your hand if you ever attended any training meeting which that organization has done. Good, yeah, at least a good number of them. We promise that through your contact, we increase those demands which have been made here to make use of that. And I'm happy to see you. Thank you. As event defenders and African defenders, we are keenly aware of these threats. Thus, our responsibility is to look out for you among other human rights defenders who, at the grave risk to yourself, undertake the often thankless job of defending the rights of others. Our human rights defenders protection and capacity building programs run from physical security training to digital safety tools designed to ensure journalists and other human rights defenders' personal and work security to enable them to go about their work safely. And I heard a number of you benefited today digital training conducted by one of our TOT here. At the continental level, we have pioneered the first African homegrown human rights defenders relocation initiative. We have christened this initiative Ubuntu Hub Cities after the African philosophy of Ubuntu-ness. And the thought it was we were able to relocate human rights defenders at risk to nearby cities with which they share culture and linguistic affinity so that they can continue go about their work with a minimum disruption. So far, 8 cities across 6 African countries have been signed up to this initiative, and Kampala is one of them. As I conclude, I would like to pay tribute to all media stakeholders here and those outside who continue to do their job in furtherance of a core fundamental rights and freedom. On 10th December and on the 9th and the 10th December, you will join the rest of the world to mark 75 years of the Universal Declaration of Human Rights and 25 years of the Declaration on Human Rights Defenders. This dual milestone would not have been possible without the courage, efforts, and sacrifices of human rights defenders like yourself. And their future survival and endurance rest largely on your willingness to continue the good fight in defense of journalism and free media. You can always count on defenders' solidarity while at it. I thank you, I thank the organizers, and wish you good luck, and take the opportunity to declare this year's annual media festival. I think there are another event which is waiting for you. So I won't say close.
Thank you very much, Mr. Hassan. And it's good to know that there are people looking out for us. From morning to evening, there have been pointers that, you know, it's not an easy job to be a journalist, and we've been asking ourselves, who else can fight for us? So we are happy to know and to see that there's actually practical support happening. And so indeed, the ceremony, the week have been declared closed, but so you who are in the room, stay with us because we'd like to find an excuse to party. We were here in 2019, and now the Media Week, the Uganda Media Week, is celebrating 5 years. So if you have a 5-year-old toddler, just understand that we are working with that child, and we are walking a journey of transforming journalism, not just in Kampala, but across the country. We will come to you. We will make sure the agenda for Toro will be there. We'll try and fight for your safety. We'll try and fight for capacity building, but we will not do it alone, right? As it said, it takes a whole village to raise a child. It takes a whole village to raise a child of Ugandan journalism. I want to thank you all. I would like to really thank each one of you in your capacities. You are a key stakeholder, and thank you for staying. Thank you for standing. I like to thank DW Academy, who started the journey together, CPESA, and in their absence, there's Conrad Kass, Adenia Stiftung, and many others, other media support organizations with whom we work with throughout there, HRMJ, UMWA, and Infonile, and MCI, different people who we work with. At the end of the day, if it's good for journalism, it's good for us, and we propose that let's collaborate, let's collaborate, let's collaborate. Now, I would like briefly to invite the team that have been working with me on this project, led by Ruth Nagudi, into this next session where we are going to cut the cake. Cedric, Solomon, please join us here and let's celebrate 5 years. And of course, it's tea that we are breaking. Kenan, do you have any last words to say?
I'm going to count down for you from 5. All right, cameras ready?
Beginning to be.
Cameras ready? All right, so since we are celebrating 5 years, it's only natural that we count from 5, right? And I'm going to ask all of us to help to count, okay? All right? Oh, yes. Partners, please make your way forward. DW, Infonile, Cipasa, Cipesa. Oh, sorry, I have an Espanol background, so we have Que pasa. Don't be shy, don't be shy. Yes, Robert has been called out by name to make way forward. Yes. If you were there in the maternity ward 5 years back, please make your way forward. All right? We're all here? All right, so we're going to be counting from 5. Please feel free to join me. We go. 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Let's go! Woo, congratulations! 5. Wonderful. Yes, you can take your seats. You'll be served. Meanwhile, there is tea and some bites waiting for you just outside. But please have a starter first. You'll be served accordingly.
She is fine. She's actually 7. Yes. I wanted to say hi to you, but they didn't get to.